I think that that's valid.
I
don't necessarily
if you don't
perfectly agree, but I do definitely.
By the way, is Andrew's stream quality better? It looks better.
It is. It is better.
I think it fixed.
Yes. It's
okay.
It's going much better.
Oh,
I wonder if I can just ask you a quick couple of questions. The first question I had for you is: do you think in the first 3 weeks, for instance, that termination of a fetus that's not a human life?
I think it's as much of a human life as an egg is a chicken.
Okay, gotcha. But understand that you supported the fact that the first 3 weeks of pregnancy that a man should have to pay support in that instance. This would make the determination that this is a human being, correct? Child support would infer that this is a what?
I think that in an anti-abortion state...
Hang on.
Sorry.
Child support would infer that this is a what?
It would infer that it's a child, so I see your point.
It would infer that it's a child, and so if you're asking for support for a child, how can you then hold the two conflicting views that this is not a child unless you determine that it is because you want money?
It's not a child, but I think that I would only consider this in states. It highly depends if that state has abortion, like what their abortion laws are, to be honest, because if they're forcing the
we're talking about the Kentucky abortion law. The Kentucky abortion law says that for a pregnancy, you can begin to collect child
the
support
offender donated $100.
Sorry, Andrew, 1 sec.
This an extreme example, but imagine if this law passed in a state where abortion was legal up until birth. The women could just take money from a man, then abort the child.
Ooh, I don't think...
Wow, that's another consideration.
It's a good point. I don't think any state should allow that.
So moving into the Kentucky law, the inference here is that this is a child, right? How could a person who was pro-choice take the money to begin with? Because then they would have to be admitting that this is a child, correct?
Well, I think that's if it was the whole question originally was about the state of how Kentucky's bills are currently. I think that
you supported it.
If you're if they have to keep the child, if the woman does not have a choice to keep the child, the man
that's a caveated position now, because your initial position was that you supported the fact that a man would have to support this pregnancy, and you said this is due to cost considerations. If that is true, then and you would take the money, then you would have to be admitting that this is actually a child, yes?
No, I would be admitting that my body's going through something that needs medical bills and money.
I see. What you're saying there is it's not a child because you want money.
No, I'm saying that if a child, a fetus, from the first part where it's not a child yet, they're still affecting the woman's body in a medical way where they need to pay for that. So at that point, no, you're not paying child support, in my opinion. You are paying medical support because you put this woman into a medical position that requires money. It's not about the kid, in my opinion, at this point, because as I said before, most of my stance comes from the medical side of this. So that's why I have that view, is because if the woman is needing to pay to, do the things they need to do for their own body, regardless of the fetus child.
Okay, I understand. Then what your position actually is that, no, I don't consider this to be a child. I just have the expectation that men will pay for and support whatever decisions you make for the pregnancy, whether it be that you have the child all throughout the term, or if they pay for the abortion, halvesies on the abortion, I don't know. But that's the actual position, right?
Well, I just stated that I think that should only be true if it's in a state where the woman doesn't have a choice either.
You mean where a woman has to bring the pregnancy to bear, can't get an abortion early?
Exactly, yeah. If they're obligated to go through those medical things.
Yeah. So let us assume for a moment that she can get an abortion in this state, and they have a law. Which says that the man would have to assist in the payment. Would you be against that law?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
No, I'm only for the man being obligated in a way that the woman is as well.
Okay, I understand. Well, that's at least consistent, right? So when we can deconstruct it back a little bit, it's at least a bit consistent. So, but just understand that the law is basically stating this is a child right from inception. That's why child support is available, is because they're considering this to be a child.
I understand that. I'm looking at it from the medical and obligation point of view for literally what your body is actually going through and the costs that come with that. So for me, I'm looking at it just a little bit of a different direction than just the ethics of whether or not the fetus is considered a child.
Yeah, but medically, I mean, life begins at inception. That is the medical standard.
True, but I'm not talking about the fetus, I'm talking about the mother. The mother's the one who needs to pay. The mother's body is the one that's going through that, whether or not you get an abortion. But only if you have to carry that do I think that he has to help support you in that. I do think they should be able to argue the circumstances of it, but I think that in a general rule, if the woman has to pay those medical bills and they do not have a choice to have an abortion, then the man should have some part in that obligation as well.
Yeah, I don't think that that's the portion that's being argued, though. If we're going to assume that it's a living child from inception, I don't think anybody would say that the man wouldn't have to take care of his end of that obligation. But rather, we're trying to determine whether or not it is the case that you believe that this is a life to begin with. And if you don't, then asking for support as though it is seems inconsistent to me.
I don't think that you're asking for support for the fetus, though. You're asking for support for your medical bills for your own body. Even if the woman decides to get an abortion, that costs around $600 to $2,000, depending on where she can go. And so if the male counterpart of this responsibility is not willing to even a little bit help out with the medical bills, the woman...
Well, no, I mean, that's ridiculous. If his standard is that that is a child, why would he be obligated to assist you in your abortion?
No, he wouldn't. That's what I'm saying.
You're essentially asking him to murder from his worldview with his money, right?
No, I'm saying if the woman cannot have an abortion, then the man should be obligated. If the woman can have an abortion, the man should have a choice as well. That's what I've been trying to say this entire time. I just don't...
Okay.
Yeah. I don't know if that came across right.
I'm trying to be charitable to the viewpoint here. I just noticed that was a massive inconsistency, but it seems like you've moved it back to a more consistent standard for us. So
Sure.
I appreciate that.
Good talk. Sure. Good talk. Let me do a couple of the chats here. We have Rockhead AB. Hey, thank you, man. Appreciate it. Guys, by the way, our TTS is back again. The Streamlabs should be back again, so it's coming in clean. My wife of 27 years passed away suddenly in 2022. Hey, sorry, man. Sorry to hear that. She couldn't have kids, so my existence is a lonely one. Find someone to